Hi, I'm Zeke with the Sonoran Desert Institute, and here at SDI, we're extremely proud to be sponsors of the Hickok 45 channel. You may be asking yourself, well, what is SDI? SDI is an affordable, fully accredited distance learning education program. We have an emphasis in gunsmithing and firearms technology. If you decide to become a gunsmith, you'll need to learn proper gunsmithing techniques, and while some people will use an apprenticeship program to gain these techniques, a formal education will ensure an organized, more comprehensive learning environment. But when you choose a gunsmithing school, it's still kind of difficult. So it's very important that you choose a gunsmithing school that meet the following criteria. First, look for a nationally or regionally accredited program. And whether distance learning online or through a brick and mortar ground program, a gunsmithing program should always have a hands-on element. And finally, make sure you look for a school with high student satisfaction. Find reviews online, check out its Facebook or other social media, or get on the same social media sites, find some alumni, and ask to speak with them about their experience. And while we're not at SDI today, I do have some of the firearms I've learned to work on and build myself through the SDI program. So let's go take a look at them. Okay, maybe not. We'll just get seriously. Can I not get a chair that fits me? I'm a big guy, dude. So I guess back to what we were originally talking about. Above all else, find the school that's right for you. It's not always going to be the distance education programs or the brick and mortar ground schools that are for everybody. Just make sure you do your research on multiple options before you make that decision. But if you want more information on our gunsmithing school, just go to www.sdi.edu or call us at 1-800-336-8939.
All right, we're back. Derek's on again.
Hey,
as usual. And this time we have Jen on. She's a therapist, and I'll let you tell them what you do and what your business is and all that.
Thank you, John. I'm Jen McMaster, and I have my own practice called The Hope Business. You can check that out at thehopebusiness.com.
Okay.
I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and I specialize in trauma.
Okay, cool. And she's here to explain to us why we're all so crazy for liking guns. That's why I got her.
Of course, about time.
Yeah, and she's gonna fix Derek.
Oh my God!
She's gonna get him to figure out a way to where he doesn't think everything is funny.
That's right. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So
if you brought her lunch, it's gonna be long. It's gonna be a long thing.
Yeah, we're gonna work on that. But no, I thought it would be. I don't know how to word this. Not neat, but it would be interesting to do a show, on PTSD. Now everyone's probably clicking out right now. Like, that sounds boring, but I mean, it's a big deal, and not just PTSD, just a lot of stuff that has to do with mental health. It's been a big issue in our country lately because of lots of things, because of crazy people doing crazy things, because of just how our world is changing so fast all the time with technology. Wars are fought so differently, and we have a lot of guys coming back from these long wars that have just taken place and still are. And it's something that people don't really talk about ever that should be, because it's like it's become this taboo thing.
It's part of the problem.
Yeah, exactly. And how hard some of these issues are to fix, of course, is varying, but definitely you're not going to fix anything if you don't ever talk about it. And it seems to me like one of the biggest problems is just like the cultural taboo of it. Like, maybe you can provide some insight. Like, how is it? Like when you have patients, is that a big part of like what you have to deal with a lot? Is that people feel like ostracized, or
the stigma that goes along with having mental health problems? Absolutely. I would say that it's easy for people to take on a sense of shame. Something's wrong with them in a different way than they would if they needed glasses, and they'd simply just go see an eye doctor and select a pair, or if they had diabetes and they would use insulin. It's certainly looked at differently by society. Yeah,
and because of that, they go untreated a lot of times, and it goes to the point where something really bad happens. Like some of these shootings that they use to try to tell good people that they can't have guns because there's a handful of bad people out there willing to use them improperly.
Trying to take away weapons, that's the easy fix. It's not the weapons, it's the people. Like you talked about, the stigma of mental illness is that's a real issue.
Yeah.
Trying to take away weapons, trying to limit weapons, that's an easy fix. It's easier to blame guns than to take on the real problem of mental health.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So if you can get that mic just a little bit closer.
Okay, how is this close enough?
Yeah.
Okay.
You might
I
be
got
able
it.
to, maybe if you,
Okay, I'm bending my neck. All right. Okay, got it. I'll hold right here.
yeah, no, you don't got to hold it
Got it.
there.
All right, got it.
There you go.
Okay, don't move. Don't move. For all our friends in East Tennessee, you know exactly what I'm talking about. All right. Okay, I'm frozen right here.
Okay.
Okay, got it.
But yeah, so I mean, it's like, how do we fix this problem? I mean, really, it's the only way to fix it is just we change our culture, because it's basically a cultural problem. Because on the individual level, if you take every individual has a problem with feeling ostracized. So it's really nothing that they can do necessarily. It's something that everybody has to do, is by just basically not looking at it like it's a big deal, looking at it like anything else, any other kind of injury, whatever it is. That's what makes it hard.
As opposed to avoiding it.
Right.
Example, my old man was a World War II veteran. He fought the Battle of the Bulge, and he came home in '46, and he said he started having issues with his experience during the Battle of the Bulge, and he says the doctor told him, "Well, if you just act normal, you'll be normal." Oh, is that it?
Yeah.
Oh well, okay, all right. Why not think of that? So hopefully the train of thought's changed.
I
hope so.
Yeah.
I think that research has changed. It wasn't until after the Vietnam War that actually more was discovered, that there was really even a term for what your grandfather would have been experiencing. Was it your grandfather or your father?
Father, yes.
Father.
Thank you for giving me those years. I appreciate that. Yeah. Whew. Somebody.
So they didn't have a term for it back then. It was after Vietnam that they started to recognize that this was an actual occurrence for...
It was the diagnosis.
Right, exactly.
Finally.
So.
Yeah, well, let's say first they called it shell shock, right?
Yes, that's the term my father used. I ain't shell shocked.
Yeah.
Okay, then stop digging that trench in the backyard. But dude, come on. Okay, that was okay. I got to stop. I got to stop. I can say that. All right.
Yeah, you can say that.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, now it's that's another funny thing is with euphemisms, it's like suddenly, oh, okay, so the problem is going to be fixed because we'll name it something different. Like George Carlin even has like a whole bit on that. He's like, at first it was shell shock, very straight to the point, shell shock, The
one I remember, the other euphemism he made was toilet paper became bathroom tissue.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Thank you for getting that joke. Yeah.
He was great, but yeah, post-traumatic stress syndrome, but. I mean, I guess one good thing about it is wait, I said it wrong.
Post-traumatic stress disorder.
Yes.
But don't worry, I was going to overlook it. No problem.
But, maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it'll help it, actually be treated like a real, illness and stuff. Like maybe, you're the expert here. How do you even begin, to deal with someone who has serious symptoms of PTSD, where they've had some kind of traumatic event in their life, whatever it is, whether it's combat or whatever.
Now, are you asking me as a professional or as somebody who might be out in the community and would know a friend or family member? Because that's two different questions.
Okay, well, yeah, okay. Well, as a professional, how is that something that they even begin to deal with?
Well. Okay, so first and foremost...
Sorry if I ask you to...
First and foremost, it's a really big deal in as much as trust and safety have been violated. So having the ability to connect with another human being and feel safe and to feel empowered, which is basically what's required in the nature of a therapeutic relationship, is a big stretch. So getting a person into therapy in the first place is a pretty big deal. So building a rapport, letting them know that they have the right to leave at any point in time and that they get to direct the course of therapy, et cetera, I have found to be crucial in the beginning. And then, again, the personal safety. So there are certain methodologies that I like to use, but I've found that there's not one size that fits all. Yeah. So recognizing that I'm looking at an individual who has a story that I'm going to honor, and that really what I'm going to do is hold a space for them, and I will reflect back to them what they're sharing so that they're seen, heard, and valued. There doesn't have to be a re-experiencing, per se, of the event in order to get to a place of resolution with the trauma. So if that allays anyone's fears, I certainly hope.
Yeah. What are the disadvantages of that? Like of re-experiencing? Do you feel like that's not effective? Does it just open wounds up stronger?
It's not that you couldn't or shouldn't necessarily, but yeah, it isn't necessarily more helpful than allowing a person to gain resiliencies without having to specifically revisit what traumatized them in the first place. So, for example, I could have. And by the way, there are lots of different types of traumas. Not all of them are earthquakes, rapes, and war. Okay, those are the big T traumas. So they're glaring and obvious. But what we've found is that there's a whole other kind of trauma called little T traumas that are really just not not validated, I guess, by society. So if you are, for example, a minority and you're continually treated with disrespect wherever you go, that death by 1,000 cuts, I guess is how they call it, or if you've been bullied, or if you've witnessed a family member, a parent per se, have some domestic violence, being someone who was powerless and witnessing can actually be more traumatic than being the person abused. Again, I think in part because there's the lack of awareness that person would have experienced a problem, so they're not getting the treatment. And I think the powerlessness feeds into that as well. But anyway, so I was saying that because I wanted to recognize that there are all sorts of forms of trauma, some of which don't necessarily look like trauma. It's really about how it's perceived as dangerous or threatening. And perception is individually based. So if I have a family history of, this is what I'd like to tell my clients, if I have a family history wherein my ancestors managed to survive because they were scared of wolves, I'm probably going to be scared of dogs, and that would be advantageous, or would have been. May not be in this current day, but there would have been a reason that served me. So that's genetic. Then there's another form of perception that would arise from my experience, so maybe a conditioned response. If I've been beaten on the hour every hour, you better believe I know when it's going to be the hour. And that doesn't mean that I'm better than you if I know when the hour comes, or that I'm worse than you. It just simply means this set of experiences has primed me to perceive things in that way. So depending on a person's perception, they're going to determine whether they're in threat or not. People are constantly scanning. If I were to hold up my hand and ball it into a fist, the lower portion near my wrist is actually the part of the brain that we share with, like, say, crocodiles. It's very basic. And it's constantly scanning the environment every 2 seconds to see, am I safe? Am I not safe? That's the entirety of its job. And when it perceives that you're unsafe, this upper portion of my balled fist, which is the most human, it's the cortex. It thinks, it has a sense of reason, a sense of time and space, it has logic and words. It goes offline. So it's like a trap door is flipped, and it is no longer connected to this part that has decided whether we're safe or not safe, because the most rational, most human part takes longer to think, quote unquote, okay?
Yeah.
Whereas the lower part simply reacts. So that's where fight, flight, freeze, submit comes in, and that's to ensure survival. So once that's activated, we're not really rational thinking beings. We're really just acting to survive.
Wow.
I apologize, but I forgot what your original question was.
No, it's okay. That was interesting. That was really interesting.
Yeah, you're right. Whatever he asked, hey, don't listen to him. That was great.
Yeah, that was really interesting. Hang on one second.
What were we talking about again?
Yeah.
We get a lot of that here. What does that mean?
This camera just freaked out. Let me fix that real quick.
Okay. Only the finest here.
Okay.
Here in Arkansas, is that right?
I thought it was northern Louisiana, but hey, close enough. Close enough.
On the border of Kentucky and Arizona.
That's right, my God. Was that a coyote? That's all, Brian.
I'll probably, this will get cut out.
I really can't think of that original question.
Dude, that was great. Great. Hey, we were like, damn, that was great. That was great.
It is kind of fascinating.
That is really interesting.
Oh, so were you asking me about
okay.
how I would treat?
Well, I was asking like, how do you how do you initially kind of get, what's your initial attack plan for dealing with that?
So building trust, and then for me, because I have had a lot of experience, I have my private practice, but I also have the privilege of being able to work in addiction. So there's Journey Pure that I contract with locally, as well as on-site workshops, does some amazing work. You can do individual intensives that last just a day, or you can go in and you can do a week-long program, et cetera. But you really get in-depth therapy. So it's, anyway. So what I know from experience is people can have fabulously trained therapists, but if a thorough history is not taken, then you can't really connect the dots until you've collected the dots.
Oh, yeah.
So I've seen clients who have in the past had therapists really try to work with them on, let's say, a specific trauma, and it wasn't able to be resolved despite the wonder of their training and the rapport that they had with their clients. However, if you take a really thorough history, so you start to understand what has occurred within the context of this person's life, much of which has to do with the nature of their relationships. So there's a lot that happens in the first 3 years of life that Erickson is... Well, he's anyway.
That guy, yeah.
Yeah, that guy. Sort of like Freud. Anyway,
sort of.
He developed a theory about development and said that the first 2 stages are really about developing attachment, but more also about developing a sense of trust and safety in the world. And so I also really like to find out a lot about what occurred in the early stages of childhood, because if I go in to resolve a trauma that occurred when a person 25, 30, 75, it doesn't matter. It could, in fact, relate to an event or an set of experiences that occurred earlier on in life. And until I allow that person to understand the connection, then it's not going to be resolved. So it may feel like it's about a single event, when in fact it could be more about a sense of, am I safe in this world, or am I connected, et cetera. So.
Yeah. I got a question. How effective is your work?
Well, actually, that's one of the things that drew me to trauma, as opposed to specifically just doing a generalist practice, is I find that trauma absolutely can be resolved. I don't know that I have the patience to work with people week after week after week who are in a stuck place.
Okay.
But with trauma, I find absolute resolution. We have tools, like, I don't know if you guys are familiar with EMDR. It's eye movement desensitization reprocessing, which...
of course. So we were talking about that before
you wrote a book on that.
Yeah. Okay.
Just to put it in a nutshell, the idea is that we have 2 hemispheres of the brain, left and right. The left is on the left side, but it works the right side of the body, and vice versa. So if you see a stroke victim who can't use the right side of their body, it means the left hemisphere of the brain was affected. Anyway, so the 2 parts of the brain connect, and they do talk, but not always. And this therapist had been walking along and thinking about her trauma. I guess I have no idea how long she'd had it. At the end of her walk, she realized she no longer carried in her body the sensations that she usually would when thinking about her trauma. And so without knowing specifically when I talk about that, what I'm thinking is like a rapid heart rate or constriction in your chest or flushed cheeks. That's kind of how the body talks to us. She no longer had those symptoms. And so she recognized that at some point during her walk, her eyes had moved rapidly back and forth. So she went on to do some research about the brain and about that process, and realized that bilateral stimulation using both sides of the body, like you would when you're walking or running, swimming, biking, etc., requires that the brain talk one side to the other. And so as she was thinking about her trauma while using both sides of the brain, it enabled her to resolve the trauma, because it no longer was stuck in a place. Because again, to reference that fist that I have as a representation of the brain, this part of the brain that determines whether something is a threat or not doesn't have words. It only has senses, and it doesn't have a sense of time or space. So it's not going to resolve something unless the energy was discharged at that point. So you have to find a means of getting it to communicate that doesn't involve words to get it to actually be resolved.
So it's like a inner brain communication problem a lot of times.
Yes, but there's no need for electrodes or anything crazy.
What?
Right.
What?
Crazy to get it
Shock-
Okay, you
resolved.
just lost me.
Yeah,
you just
no.
lost me right there.
No, but to be able to get the brain to heal itself using what's called EMDR, you're not strapping on electrodes. You're not doing anything invasive with the brain. You're just allowing the person to safely determine how they're going to look at whatever the issue is. Then using some thoughts about what's the worst part about that, what do you believe about yourself as a result of that, and what would you rather believe? And you help them locate whether they have sensations coming up in their body around the negative beliefs, and you scale it. So you anchor it. Where are they starting? Do they have on a 0 to 10 scale a disturbance of 7 or 2? And how positive are those positive thoughts? Are they 1 to 7? Is it I totally don't believe it yet versus I totally believe it? And you write those things, or I write those things down, scribble furiously as they do the process, and then you find out at the end that it's over because the sensations in the body are gone. The positive is completely 100% positive, and the negative beliefs are gone. They're 0. Now, that's not to say that you won't still have the memory of the event, and it's not to say that you won't still have loss or grief around it.
It's like the physical reactions that you get as a result of it that kind of dissipate.
Yes,
Right?
and and no longer is it being experienced as something that is still in the present. Again, we're talking about the part of the brain that doesn't understand past tense and future tense. It only understands the present. It no longer is carrying that in the present. So it literally is like a load off. It's no longer trying to get healed, because that's the other thing about it is if you are in a place of having post-traumatic stress, your body is trying to get this healed. So you're going to be stuck in cycles that you may or may not be conscious of, probably not conscious of, so that you can either reenact it or put yourself back in and try to correct it, try to resolve it naturally. But unless you have new tools or unless you have new insights, which I don't know how that magically happens, hopefully, then it's not going to resolve.
I was about to ask, how much of a issue is patient responsibility in being willing to help themselves?
Yeah, absolutely. So,
Because you can't help them if they don't want to help.
No, and the symptoms, the 3 primary symptoms of trauma, by the way, are constriction, so having to make your life smaller, whether that means you're no longer able to go certain places, do certain things, be with certain people. You have to let go of parts of yourself because they're reminders. So that's constriction. Hypervigilance. So there's this sense of being always just on and on alert.
Which definitely is something that veterans, I would say, probably.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's exhausting. Hypervigilant, and then intrusions. So that would be flashbacks or nightmares, etc. So if you're experiencing one of the 3 of those things, I would say, you don't have to start with therapy, but another myth or around, I guess, mental health in general is that to admit to a problem is weakness. I would say
past that,
absolutely. So I would say that's one of the things in life where there's a paradox. To me, if you're able to admit to having a weakness, you're actually strong.
Yeah.
I was about to say, I want to make that point that I think one of the biggest issues is admitting that there's something wrong in the first place.
Yes, absolutely.
There's a problem here, and now let's take some steps to resolve it.
Yes.
It seems like a lot of the problems that we have in our heads is the inability to let go of something that we're really attached to, some type of sense of I'm this kind of person. I'm a person who does this kind of thing, and then if we let go of that, it hurts us a little bit.
Yeah.
And just being able to, like something happened. I am that happened, but that doesn't necessarily have to define, who I am, what I'm going to do in the future.
Letting go is also a big aspect in anger management.
Oh, really?
Not that I know anything about that, but that's a big aspect of anger management. Letting go, just to turn it loose.
Yeah.
Man, how many years ago was that? Come on, boy.
Oh yeah, that's a whole other thing. Road rage. Jeez.
So, by the way, EMDR is just one of the tools. There's also psychodrama, which is getting to act things out once again. Well, you get around words, okay? So you can role play things, or there's experiential therapy. There's mindfulness-based therapies, as well as yoga therapy, etc. So there's not one size fits all.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
Yoga?
We can call it other things.
That's sacrilegious to him, probably.
Oh, really?
Yoga.
He's over there thinking yoga. Okay, you're gonna have me eating tofu.
That's right, dude. Is there a tree I can hug around? Come on. Got any granola? Of course, it's great work. It's great. I know it is. Come on.
See, I'm like the hippie gun nut, and he's like the barbarian gun nut.
Come on. Anything involving swords, some hacking of something. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Outside the box. Come on there.
Yeah. Well, actually, in all seriousness, that's one thing I've heard that a lot of vets have had a good time with is getting out there and shooting guns and stuff. And I could see it on a deeper level. It's like, okay, I'm doing something that's like what I used to do when I was in the military, but it's not the same stress. So maybe disassociate some of that stress with different things. I can see that being therapeutic.
After this last little trip to that certain place across the ocean,
I
was like, no, guns down, put them down, bad, and then somebody took me shooting.
Yeah.
Oh my God. He stuck an AR in my hand. I was like, oh God. Oh, this is great. It was great. I've not looked back, so it's been good. It can be good.
Yeah. So that's a resource in your life.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Able to go out there and shoot. And, it's fun and stress reliever, and it's good. And again, in my current work, you can behave. It improves your skill with the tools of your trade,
right.
And again, and it focuses on the behaving responsibly. So it's a good thing.
I know. Like fitting in too is like it's funny. I've always gotten along with vets pretty well because it's like I don't know, like I'm kind of like a real even keel kind of guy. So like people tell me stuff, and I'm like, oh, okay, I don't like. I had a friend that was in college that was a vet, and he would always tell me stuff and whatever. Okay. But like he told me one time, he's like, this is awesome. Like I can just tell you stuff, and you're just like, that's cool. Usually I tell people either it scares them or they get like intimidated by it or something.
Also, there's a movie, boys and girls, called Kelly's Heroes. Okay, and there's a guy in there, Donald Sutherland. Looks just like Big John. I'm telling you. There's a dead ringer for him. I'm telling you. Check it out. It's Telly Savalas and Clint Eastwood. Kelly's Heroes.
Yeah.
It's Big John in his
It's like
life.
a comedy.
Check that movie out.
Yeah. That's all we did was talk about war movies when we watched it.
You mean there's something else? Oh, no.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about 50 Shades of Grey here.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Right.
But like fitting in though, you know what I mean? Like that seems like, like you have told me stories about that, you come back and just fitting in with the public again.
You hear people, because of your experience, you come back here and you're sitting in a restaurant and you hear people talk about, my salad don't have enough croutons on it. Dude, shut up. You don't say it, but you want to, Or somebody that recently was whining about, my blue cheese just isn't blue cheesy enough. Okay, dude. Okay, yeah. So it can be hard to put up with that, considering some of the austere conditions that some of us have had to live in. So
right, because you're it's all about perspective. We all like who was it that said or perception is reality or whatever.
Absolutely.
Because if you've had extreme experiences of hardships and having to live in hard conditions and going to the bathroom in a hole in the ground.
And hey, that's the best part. Come on,
that's right.
Too many people. Too many people don't appreciate what they have and where they're at. And I'm a big believer that anybody that has the ability to get out there and travel and see other parts of the world, they're going to come back and go, America, by God, is great. Because it could be worse. It is worse.
My goodness, yes.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, there's a lot of problems that we should have with our country, but it's a pretty good one though compared to
what else is out there. I'm here to tell you.
Yeah, and even within the country, I've done some traveling out west and stuff. It's just crazy how some people live out there.
Oh, yes. It's a broad strata, oh my God.
Yeah.
So we should be grateful. And let's wave that flag some more. Yes, we should be grateful here in America.
Yeah.
This ain't a Republican show, is it?
No.
Okay.
Well, one thing that kills me is that, this is something that like the hardcore right a lot of times will be all about is how it's unpatriotic to critique the government or to have problems, or it's unpatriotic to have to want to not have wars and all these kinds of things. I mean, America is just an idea. That's all it is, and an idea should be flexible. If it isn't, then it's not a very good one. And I don't get how that's becomes a politicized concept. It's like, oh, if you don't like this, then you're not patriotic, or what? That's crazy.
The fact that we have the right to express our opinion here is wonderful, because other places it ain't that way.
No.
I tell you. So we have a lot to be grateful for. All of us aren't, but we have a lot to be grateful for, and we should take time to remember that.
Yeah. What was that? Did you say in one of those countries that this will remain nameless, where they actually have like a police force that enforces like certain codes?
Oh, I'm not going to tell the name of that certain country in a certain place, but there are people that walk around, and if say a female isn't dressed culturally appropriate, there could be a problem. Many years ago, and there was this certain walk down the street, and this female person, I'm not being vague enough, female person did not have proper headgear, and this authority figure walked up and said, "Cover your head." And the female authority figure responded, "Well, I'm this, I'm that, I don't have to." He says, "No, you're here, cover your head." She said, "No, I'm not going to do it. I'm this, I'm that." He said, "No, you're here." Pulled out his bamboo cane, bam, hit her in the head with it.
Wow.
Okay, ma'am. We took her into a shop, got the appropriate headgear, put this on. Okay, everybody's okay now, and continued about our business. It can be different. Things could be a lot different. We just don't realize how different things could be.
Yeah. That's another thing that it's real easy to to spiral yourself down and start thinking negatively. And if you look at things realistically and analytically, it's very easy to see the bad side of of everything. But that's why it's like I always try to talk about perspective. That's the thing. It's like everything has a bad side.
Absolutely.
You can't just get rid of bad. It's always going to be there. It's like you have to see both and get that both of them are part of part of life and everything. Like it's funny, recently my wife and I have been watching back through Star Wars, getting ready for the new one coming out.
One, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know if you're a Star Wars fan or not, but
come on, of course she is. Come on.
But what's crazy is that I guess I hadn't paid attention to it in a while, but there's so much great Eastern philosophy stuff in Star Wars.
Yes.
And it's really interesting. I was noticing we're watching I'm not crazy about the prequels. They're okay. But then the third prequel.
That's another show. Goodbye.
That's right. Yeah. It's interesting. They're talking about the difference between, the good side and the dark side, And what's interesting, I never caught this before, is you hear one of the Jedis talking about being mindful of your feelings. And then you hear like the Sith Lord talking about basically just trust your feelings and go with your feelings, your instincts.
Oh, that lower brain.
Yeah. And I was thinking, I was like, that's the difference, between whatever you want to call it, good, evil, the dark light, whatever, is it's like being mindful of your emotions and going, oh, okay, I see that I'm feeling this way. I wonder if that's a good idea to do this or that, versus just like, I'm angry, let's do angry. It's like...
Believe me, coming from the environment that we both worked in and the one I still work in now, a lot of problems wouldn't be there if people took time to think before they acted. That'd be a lot less problems. It's just easier, less stress, less BS, less everything. Okay, is it worth getting upset about? Is it really worth all this? but that lower brain acts up and people just kind of jump.
Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy. One thing that's interesting to me too is the like the evolutionary aspect, of that. Like I was watching this documentary on Netflix actually about stress and how one of the problems that people have today is that that it used to be in the old, 1,000 years ago, 500 years ago, whatever. Stress was very black and white. It was very clear cut. It was like, I'm about to die or I'm not. I'm hunting or I'm not. And I'm at war or I'm not. But nowadays we have all these like burden related stress where it's like, oh, I got to keep track of this thing, or I got to not forget that birthday, or
My
I gotta,
phone updated.
Yeah.
What's that? Sorry, off track again. Yeah, I read this article on this new diagnosis. They got people that get caused anxiety because they're separated from their cell phone.
No.
My God, come on, where are we at? What's become of us?
I know.
My cell phone. Oh my God, where is it? Oh God, I've had that. We covered this one event, and you could not have a cell phone. It was a premiere, and it was worried about people making bootleg copies of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
So you couldn't turn on your cell phone. You ask somebody to turn off their cell phone, it's like you're asking them what color their underwear is.
Yeah.
What? Turn my cell phone
My
off.
cell phone.
What? What?
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, dude. Nothing's gonna happen.
Yeah.
And then this one lady, I got her to turn her cell phone off. I almost had to arrest her.
Oh.
Because she absolutely refused to turn off her cell phone. I said, lady, what do you think's going to happen? Is it like a volcano going to, what?
Yeah.
But then finally we took her outside, talked her down, and got her to turn her cell phone off. Come on, something's wrong, man.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, but that's, as our world, everything is just speeding up so fast, things get more and more complicated, and just stress, it's like, I guess you deal with people that they get it just from their jobs or something. They just get so stressed out that they, seek help, or is that something you deal with very often? Or?
I wouldn't say necessarily just from their jobs, but I would say the anxiety that you're talking about. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
I see lots of people with issues with anxiety.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you kidding? I got a institution full of them.
Yeah.
Over that way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you do. Yeah.
But you're right. Like the culture that we live in would support that. I mean, you do bigger, better, more now. And so absolutely.
Also, I think an inability to know how to relax.
Yeah.
Someone who should remain nameless. That's our term. That's our theme here.
Yeah.
Someone who should remain nameless. When you take them on a vacation, the big thing is, I think a lot of people try to do too much on these so-called vacations, and then they come back more stressed than they were when they left.
Right.
Yeah.
And you end up needing a vacation from the vacation.
Right.
So my big thing is, okay, let's just go that way. And then anything we need, we'll get it when we're there.
Yeah.
And they're like, what? What are you talking about? I'm like, just get in the car.
I know. I hate plans
Yeah,
on
yeah.
vacation. I hate plans.
We'll just go north. We'll just go north.
Yeah.
They're like, I can't do that.
Yeah.
Dude, what's wrong with you?
I know.
Different personalities.
Well, yeah, I guess that's the big thing is just being able to relax and let go of all these, stresses, like even just bills sometimes can be overwhelming. Like here, I've probably got, 9, 10 different bills I've got to keep track of, and, house, electric, motorcycle, all these different things. And it's like, you forget one and, it's so much, it's just so much stuff, and and we're hardwired, like, eat, kill, reproduce,
In that order.
But we're just so hardwired for these, more simple kinds of things. And, it's great what's happening with technology, that our consciousness is evolving and all that stuff is great, but it's like a difficult transition, I think, for a lot of people, I could see how. Well, it'd be interesting to know if PTSD, combat PTSD, was the same, back 500-600 years ago, 1,000 years ago, where, you were living in whatever huts or tents, and you go out and you fight the war and come back and.
Okay, I can speak on this.
Okay.
This professional one. All right, professional person. I got this. Anyway, in the past, they dealt with it by not dealing with it. I've read accounts from the Civil War. What they did was that the wife, the spouse, was the one who did all the caregiving. One woman from 1865, she wrote that when her husband came home from the Civil War, his tour duty ended, but her tour duty started because it was the job of the wife, whoever, or the mother, or the family to take care of the guy. Back then, if you were too bad, they just put you on a train, sent you out west.
Man.
You know, hey, they send them out to Wyoming, like here, where we are now.
You don't do that in your practice?
You know, on the bus. We don't know. Here, get on that grant.
Yeah.
All the good old days.
Well, but I think that, yes, that's absolutely true. But I think also since then, we now have the ability to do research and actually collect data. So one of the things that's occurred is they've realized that like only 18% of humans are wired to actually kill others while in combat.
Oh.
So they've figured out what those character traits were and what it was about those people that allowed them to do that. And they've started including that in the training. So now, regardless of whether you would have been one of the 18%, they now know how to train you to become that.
It's repetitive training.
Yeah, and that works when you are in the situation in which you're trained to be in, but what about when you come back and you're no longer in threat and you're no longer needing to use those skills? I believe that some of that, and correct me if I'm wrong, has to do with finding your peers to become sort of more like your family.
Yes.
And there's a desire to protect your family,
Exactly.
right? But when you come home, your family is your family. And so there's been a disconnect and a need to reconnect. But unless there is active training or de-processing or whatever you want to call that, then I don't really know how these people are supposed to make that transition.
In the past, what happened was that if you stayed in the Army for 20 years or more, once you hit 18 years, you were pretty much on your own. They pretty much just, okay, you had the part-time job, you worked off post. Yeah, you were still in the Army, but you start preparing to retire. You know, you start, they understood back then.
Okay.
Why is this thing echoing, man?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I feel like I'm in the cave. Anyway, yes, we are. I forgot we are. But what they did in the past, once you hit 18 years, you start slowly transitioning out to civilian life by having a part-time job. You spent less and less time on the base doing Army stuff. Yeah, you were in the Army. You made the first formation of the day, and then you were just pretty much on your own. That's how they unofficially let you transition back to civilian life. Now, with this late war, it's like, okay, you're done. Get out.
Wow.
Which is the problem they had in the Vietnam era. It's like, okay, you're done, get out there. Okay, I'm around these people who have not had the same experience I've had, which I can personally relate to that at this first place I worked at.
That's right. You worked at, I wasn't saying Life Flight though, right?
This place where I worked at. The problem I had there was a problem relating to these people because none of them had a military background. I spent my entire adult life in the Army doing all that. And then I'm around these people who were just people. And, you know, people talk about their kids and the dog got fleas and the kid needs braces. I'm like, why? So it was like, okay. And I apologized. I did the thing that I promised I wouldn't do, which is tell war stories and raw. And there's a book called A Soldier Comes Home about guys coming home readjusting from World War II. And I read that book and a guy did I did the exact same thing he did. Again, being able to associate with normal people, quote unquote, was difficult because they didn't have the same experience you had.
No.
So it takes time. Over time, after embracing the fact that yes, you're different.
Yeah, well, it's like anything that you've seen that most people haven't. If you've had an experience, like if you went to space or something, you're an astronaut. Nobody can relate to what that's like unless you've actually done it. You know, so it's like you come back and you feel disconnected.
Exactly, and over time, you'll start, coming back down to earth and being like a regular old Joe with his fishing trips and, his hunting. Okay, whatever. So you'll relate to him.
So what I hear you saying is that you had the desire, the need to connect with others, but you didn't have the means.
Exactly. There's no way to relate to them because I, again, spent my entire adult life in the Army. Now I'm with these people who didn't, who are out here in Western Utah and, around normal people.
So there was no common ground.
No common ground.
Yeah.
But over time, you overcome that. Okay. You have to. If you're going to function out here, be around people and function in society, you have to. You have to change.
Yeah, which is why a lot of vets have found some peace getting into a job that somewhat relates to what they did. Well, like
imagine that.
Yeah, like you work security, or guns, like in the firearms industry. There's a lot of vet-owned companies that make anything from guns to holsters to gear, all this kind of stuff, and
it gets you around people who are like-minded.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Like I haven't been in the military, but we get along. We both like guns. We like all the same stuff. So you get around people who at least can like sort of understand. I guess what.
It's an ongoing, slow process, but you can come around if you back to that personal responsibility thing. You got to realize that I'm this way, and it can be make a lot of people feel uncomfortable. So understanding that, hey, look, it's okay, relax.
Yeah. But
it's cool.
It's interesting how strong though the human desire is for connectedness, and how when you lose sight of that, you just.
Well, it's a basic human need, actually. Yeah. To belong, to be connected. Yeah.
So now unfortunately, I got a couple of individuals who had a problem readjusting. So it's like, all right, come over here. All right, we got you. Sit down right there. You're with us now.
Right.
All right. Hey.
I think in that desire for connectedness is kind of like the groundwork basically for our culture in a lot of ways, I think. But it's kind of is what's sort of causing the problems, I think, right now also in the same way, because you have all these cultures that were separated from other cultures, which is why they are the culture that they are, because it was just them. And so they create this culture. Well, now everything is connected. So then it's kind of like, okay, now everyone's different again. Everyone got to be kind of the same and they got along, and then now there's a bunch of us now, so then everybody's different. So it's like, we're back to square one. But that's why I like transcendental ideas that can try to like bring everybody together, regardless of what culture you come from, what your background is, whatever, because that's the only way that this whole thing is going to work. If
very hippie.
If all the cultures can kind of get together, like there's a philosopher I listen to or read sometimes and listen to on his lectures and stuff, and he says culture is not your friend, and I would agree with that in some ways. While culture can give us a lot of pleasure, whatever it is, Christmas, birthdays, different culture, the way we dress, whatever it is, that can be a source for a lot of pleasure, but also it creates a lot of conflict. Look, most of the conflicts in the world are cultural issues.
ISIS.
Yeah, that guy looks different from me. He thinks something different than me. We have to kill them. It's.
I would say there's a sense of defining what is versus what isn't. And so that's part of the problem is either you are this or you're not this.
Yeah, it's not that clear. It's not that clear.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like,
people are the same. I'll say that. People are the same. They're all the places I've been and people I've come in contact with. They all had the same problems, same issues. I'm in Germany at this. There was an old Roman fortress above a hill above Wiesbaden, Germany.
Wow, but that's cool.
And they found some actual Roman writings that were preserved.
Wow.
For letters that Roman guys were sending home from the first century AD. And they showed the translation in English, and it's like they're whining, almost at the B word. They are whining about the same thing that we do now. It's cold here. The food sucks. My wife, what's her birthday? What do I get her?
Yeah.
2,000 years ago.
Wow. Yeah.
And I thought, man, I just heard that last week. So people are the same. People have always been the same. Different technologies, times, but people are basically the same.
Right. And I think I'm of course a big advocate of the internet because it's how I make my living.
That's right. My God.
But,
yes.
I think I always say I think the internet will be the greatest thing to happen to mankind ever. Basically, and, assuming that we haven't created something like that before and we destroyed ourselves and forgot. Well, there's actually some people that think that humans have been technological before, and that we've gone through this cycle a few times on Earth where we become technological, we destroy ourselves, and then the few stragglers start piecing things together.
Okay, all right, everybody to the cave. All right, we're starting over here.
And then by the time they do, then they've already forgotten all of it, and they're just starting over again. I don't don't know that I agree with it, but it's interesting.
That explains them pyramids. Come on now.
There you go. See?
Hey, come on. Okay, I got this
We're getting somewhere now.
I got this great joke. I can't tell it, but I'll tell you afterwards.
Okay.
about how the pyramids got built. But,
but that connectedness thing that we were talking about, obviously it happens on a real physical level, but that is going to happen on an artificial level that's going to make up for it, I think, eventually. Well, it's going to start out artificial, and then it's going to be, real eventually at some point. I see it with, the gun rights movement. People in other countries who don't have, just any rights that Americans have that a lot of countries don't, they get on the internet and they talk. It used to be a big deal if you had a pen pal. Like, hey, I talked to this guy in Germany or whatever. That was like a big deal. That's nothing now. I mean, everyone from all over the world is on the internet, especially the other English-speaking countries. So now the freedoms that America has is in everyone's face, and all these other people are realizing, hey, I want that too. That's pretty nice. And
almost.
Well,
except
okay.
that certain part of the world that I told you about, that where they see American freedoms as a threat to their culture. Individuals I came across, they see the fighting the American, the infidel, as this great cosmic struggle that's a threat to their very culture. Not really, dude, but but it's different. Back to that. It's different from what they've come up with to what they're used to.
But see, as the internet spreads out to even these remote areas like this, I mean, information is the thing. People say that money is power. Really, it's information.
Yeah.
The way I look at it, once information finally can reach the far reaches of the entire planet, it's like people can't have these illusions anymore of how we're all so different and my way is the only way and all this kind of stuff.
They can't either, because I saw that mud hut in Iraq with a satellite dish, and that guy's in the internet. Hickok 45. Listen.
Yeah. You're joking.
No, I'm not.
Really?
There was I saw a place called Balad. There was a village, and walked to this village. There was a mud hut with a satellite dish on top of it.
Wow.
But to top that, which I've told him this, further down the road in this looked like your stereotypical first century village. And I kept expecting the apostles to walk by. But this mud hut, satellite dish, and a mint condition 67 Mustang.
No.
With a cover parked next to it.
Wow.
Dude, priorities, dude. Priorities. Well, hey. It's out there. The information's out there. That dude was scored away.
Yeah. It's like that. There's this Rammstein. So are you familiar with Rammstein, that band? They're like a German metal band. I don't know. But they had this song. It's called like We All Live in America or something like that. And
much.
I mean, it's not a very pro-America song, to be honest, but it's like they had a point. I mean, it's about how like everywhere is turning into America.
Well, yes.
We're so powerful.
Yeah.
Well, okay, what you see a lot of is that they would like American things. They not necessarily like Americans, but they like American things.
Right.
Like this guy that in Germany, they wanted some Chicago Bulls jackets. They were like, by God, that's all they were the most.
I'm guessing this was sometime like around the mid 90s, right?
Close.
Sometime
like
between like
88 to 90, yeah.
Late 80s to 98, right?
Yeah, that's right. No, 88 to 90 in that time frame.
Okay, there was like that one guy that played for them that people liked.
Joe, what's his name?
I can't remember.
Jay, I can't remember his name.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Anyway, it was the family. I was written out their attic, and their son was like, they were the most goose-stepping Nazis I ever seen. But they loved the Chicago Bulls.
Wow.
And I paid my rent with a 5-pound can of coffee every month. And I bought their friendship by all they wanted was me to go to the PX and get them some Chicago Bulls jackets. Wow. Once I'd done that, dude, he's great.
Well, there we go.
Love him.
maybe we can solve this whole ISIS problem.
Let's get some.
What's their favorite football team? We'll hook them up.
Get me the Air Force now. Let's go.
Yeah. We'll just drop.
Take those bombs off.
Yeah. we'll drop. Episodes of the latest reality shows and albums and whatever.
Which
on ISIS.
We should do that because we're in Baghdad, and when the Americans took over in Baghdad, this Iraqi woman came up trying to get a job with the Americans, and I know I can only assume she was trying to look Western because she had this pink chiffon dress on with puffy shoulders. This is '03, puffy shoulder, and her hair was moussed out like this far.
Oh my goodness.
I thought we need to get her some Cosmo right now. Get her a copy of Cosmo right now. So.
Oh man.
Pink.
Hey, but for them, that's so outside of the box for them. Oh my God.
Yeah. That's weird. One thing I don't know, this might be a crazy question, but what do you think,
She hears that all the time. Come on.
That's true. That's true. You're a professional at answering crazy questions. But of course, one of the big issues has been, in the news has been this whole thing where, with these extremist groups, that's why I like to call them extremist groups, because that's what they are. Yes, they happen to be of a certain nationality, maybe, but an extremist group is an extremist group, regardless of where it's from. And so they have this problem with people depicting Muhammad, and they use that to justify violence, to kill, right? And I get that that's like a religious cultural thing, but is there anything in your experience there where you could give us some insight, like what goes through someone's head, on something like on that where they choose to kill in the name of just an idea that they get in their head. That just seems so bizarre to me.
Ooh, I'm sure that there are some therapists who could speak to that. I don't know that I'm that person. I mean, there's a difference. I mean, that's for some, that's a real religious belief, and it cuts to the core. Yeah.
I don't have the answer.
I can say any more than that.
Yeah.
Okay, stop the therapist. Okay. All right, got it.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy.
It goes back, I think, to what I said about some individuals in that religion feel like this is a cosmic struggle for their existence, and when you blaspheme in what they believe is blasphemy, you deserve to die, which is completely unacceptable here in America. Completely unacceptable. These individuals from Texas jumped in their vehicle, drove 500-600 miles to attempt an assault on these people because they thought differently than they did. That is completely unacceptable, no matter what you believe in.
Right.
So this is America, which is, again, part of what we need to appreciate being here. We can think, almost say anything you want. It's your business. So,
right. It's like, well, we use this as an argument to for gun rights, because you look at the thing in Paris and you look at the thing in Texas. In Paris they came in there and just did what they wanted, basically, and in Texas they basically got stopped immediately, because there was people there with guns, and to me, I see a lot of correlations with a lot of different things, and to me, the concept of guns and their use for defense is similar to the concept of how you can't necessarily eliminate bad things in your life by just totally running from them, because in most cases the only way to stop some type of event, like a Sandy Hook, for example, as unpopular as it might be to say, I mean, the only thing that would have truly stopped that event from happening would be if it was met with equal opposition. The same reason that you don't walk into some place and just punch somebody, because they got hands too. They're going to punch you back, so you don't do that. And whenever, these shootings, they always happen in places where they know there's not going to be any kind of opposition. That the Aurora, Colorado shooting, it's a hard word to say for some reason. He looked around at several different theaters in that area and found the one that had a sign posted that said no guns.
Which, that's why I can't believe the insanity defense that they're giving them. He checked to make sure that nobody in there would have a weapon.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty sane.
Well, I guess on some level
they're rational, but they may still be
make that
delusional.
rational. Better word.
Yeah, there you go.
Better word. Thank you. Say okay. Better word. Okay, got it.
That's like saying that. What's his name? the guy that ate people, that he was rational because he knew to preserve them and put them in his freezer.
Okay,
So
which one?
Yeah. Oh, Dahmer. Yeah.
Okay.
So he can't get the insanity plea because he was smart enough to preserve them. Because he didn't want to eat bad.
You can't spoil human flesh. What's wrong with you?
Yeah. Come on. He's not insane. Sorry.
Wow.
Anyways.
Good point.
I had to point out his failed logic with an extreme example.
That's fine. Hey, whatever. Hey, got it. Okay, wording. Okay, better wording. Yes.
But yeah, I like I was saying, I see a correlation between, because that's something that I found. You can't get rid of bad things in your life. Bad things are going to happen. You can't just. Well, like, I've heard about people who have so much anxiety that they just won't leave their house. That, they just stay in their house, which is, I would see that as like textbook example of someone who's just trying to hide from, their problems. And, you almost have to, it seems like embracing, the negative things in life and learn to live with them almost seems like, the best way to do it. And that's one way that I look at carrying a gun. It's like, I don't carry a gun because I'm afraid that something might happen. I'm actually not that, I'm not going to say I wouldn't be afraid if someone was shooting at me. Maybe I would, but I don't carry a gun because I'm afraid. I carry a gun because I'm embracing the fact that there is danger. There are other people who have guns. They're going to figure out ways to get them, just like people figure out ways to get anything. And I embrace that as a reality, but I don't dwell on it. It's part of life.
It's a criminal element out there you have to be aware of and be prepared to deal with if you have to on an individual basis.
Right.
How do you like that wording?
I like it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So, there's a lot of ways, a lot of ways to look at it, but that's what I've always found in a nutshell. Just trying to figure out what it is, and I don't know. What do you think about, like? I get I'm always trying to direct questions, but like, is that something that you talk about a lot with your patients and stuff, like trying to embrace their their fears or their, like, how do you, like, when someone comes to you and says that, like, they have this specific fear of something, like, how do you deal with it with them? Do you tell them to try to embrace it, or you tell them to try to eliminate the triggers of it, or what?
That's interesting. So first of all, I would validate that they have the fear. Again, it's perception based. So
and when you say validate, you mean like not making them feel bad about like validating is in like what explain to you? I'm almost not. See, I'm not smart enough to ask you questions.
That's okay. No, that's not true. I would acknowledge that they have their experience. It doesn't mean that I would say that that's my experience or anyone else's, but I would allow for them to be honest about who they are and what they're experiencing. So in so doing, that's kind of validating, that's seeing them, hearing them, allowing them to be who they are. Let's see. There's a fabulous book called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. Now, I don't know that it's necessarily speaking to phobias, but the idea behind it is fear doesn't just dissipate, that more or less a person will gather their resources, whether that's internal or external, and adjust the fear. And that over time, in doing so, then fear goes away. But that you don't predicate your life on waiting for the fear to go away before taking action. So that's like a nice rational thing to believe. But going back to the brain, the lower 2/3 of the brain is in charge most of the time, 90-something% of the time, and that's not the rational part of us. So
the more like the reactionary.
That explains a lot, right there.
So I would bolster that person. I would support that person, and I believe that we don't we can seek wisdom anywhere, and I'd like to believe that I'm full of wisdom. However, that is not my job to disseminate wisdom. My job is to allow people to connect with their truth. Is how I see it.
Yeah.
So
like
whatever, we can identify what's getting in the way, what they would need to be able to experience something differently. But it's not for me to give advice.
Coping skills?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right.
Bolster that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And support is one of the best things, like the connection that people have with their community, with others, whether that's friends or social groups, it is a huge determinant of whether someone will end up actually having post-traumatic stress disorder or not. So.
Yeah, I know. One of the big issues with a lot of vets coming back, is the suicide rate among vets is really high.
And the Army don't understand why. That's one of the scary things about that. They don't necessarily understand why. Personally, I think you're brought in with the belief that certain things and organizations going to be supporting you at a level that they're really not.
Yeah.
And then when the realization hits you that, whoa, maybe these people and things aren't going to be here the way they said they were going to be, that can be traumatic.
Yeah.
So.
And one thing that, and I never had, anything like that, but the thing that always helped me, because I went through a period where I was like, oh, what am I going to do with my life? Everybody's had something like that. And the thing that helped me through that was realizing that, the past is really nothing more than just kind of a shady memory. And the future doesn't even exist. And the present is just infinite possibilities. So
what? I didn't do nothing. Just sit here.
I saw you over there. I saw you.
Okay. All right.
But realizing that can be such a freeing thing. Realizing you're not stuck to your past.
Right now is all we have.
Yeah, it's just a memory. It's all it is.
Man, let's go.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, like in a way, like fear is basically, because that's the thing that's interesting about fear to me, is that fear basically only exists in your perception of the future in a lot of ways based on the past, because very rarely in the actual present is there actual fear. There might be danger, but fear always comes from your perception of what you think might happen next, not what's happening right now.
Hey, ma'am, I got a question for you. What do you allow your clients use past memory, holding on to past events to justify current behavior?
I can't say that that's true of my clients. However, at this time, I haven't worked. I don't want to assume that this is a veteran problem.
No.
I know that you're a veteran, so
Okay.
maybe my assumption is that you're speaking on behalf of veterans.
Yeah.
I apologize if I'm making
That's
an
fine.
assumption.
That's fine.
I know. I have known some who have clung to that. And if I were a person who'd had numerous attempts at getting support and it had failed, it makes sense to me that it would be an easy default, or one that would allow my ego, and I'm not saying, I feel like I'm damning myself, excuse me.
That's fine. That's fine.
No, but we have to be able to have we make a narrative of what's going on, and that's how we construct the world, how we manage to survive. And if I can't manage to make it work for me, then I have to figure out a defense, if that makes any sense.
Okay, yeah. Scapegoat.
So I certainly can say we've come a long way. There are new treatments out there. There may be real cause why previous treatments were not effective, because once again, if you're talking talk therapy to a part of the brain that has no words, it would not have been effective. I will say that today we have different treatments that would make it effective. Okay. So I feel like it's unfair to assume that everyone who claims that this is just who they are is giving you BS when they may have not had experiences that would have supported them actually making a transition or a change. Okay. But again, recognizing that what we have is the present, I would say today that isn't a sufficient excuse. So yes, I would buy into the personal responsibility. And I know plenty of therapists who are willing to work with people who either don't have insurance or are veterans and will do it for free, etc. So there certainly are means. And if someone wants someone other than myself, I'm happy. I'm part of National Psychotherapy Institute. I'm happy to connect people, whatever. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, definitely. Anyone listening should check out. I'll put links and stuff in the description. Okay. For website and stuff like that. I was looking at this one article a couple of days ago about this veteran who had come back, from experience. Like he talked about. I'm sure he had several experiences, but he spoke specifically about being involved in an IED where, he was basically blown up in a vehicle and came out and just looked around. And it's just total chaos, and he just had a lot of trouble from that experience. And he talked about coming back, getting treatment, and he talked about, like we were saying earlier, he had like this switch had been turned on, his survival switch, and he thought that it would just fade once he got back and integrated into normal life, but it just didn't. And he got treatment, and they put him on different drugs and stuff, and he talked about how they didn't really do much for him. They basically kind of they treated some of the symptoms a little bit, but he still felt that. And they actually experimented with MDMA and actually had a lot of success. It actually changed him. It enabled him to look at his experience in a totally different light than he did before. He talked about how it changed his life, and he said it saved his life. Wow. It's kind of interesting how there's some other, and of course, MDMA it's like a Schedule I drug, and it's interesting though how, maybe things that we've overlooked in the past because we associated with, this has to be a bad thing because these certain people do this, or it's used in these contexts.
Come on. But with all the prescription drugs out there nowadays, I mean, it's hard to say, what's a bad drug? Oh, come on.
Yeah. It's like, here's what that doesn't make sense to me. Heroin is a Schedule I drug. Okay, for most painkillers are not Schedule I. They're like Schedule 3 or 2. I forget how all that works. The same thing. What's the difference? It's the same thing. It's just heroin is just straight opium when the other one they made it in a lab and put it in a pill. I mean, it doesn't make any sense.
Those pharmaceutical companies, by God.
Yeah. Oh man, that could be a whole show just on.
Speaking of drugs, I gotta say this: war is a drug. I'm going to tell you, war is a drug, baby. Because once you
power,
that exhilaration, that boy, nothing is more clear. That rush, and then once you come down, you're like, oh man, that was great.
Yeah. Well, even from when we used to work security, sometimes something would happen. It's like it's that evolution we talked about. It's like this feels right.
That's
you know what I mean?
Oh God.
It's like and it's a shame that you have to feel that way. You have to do it under like those kind of circumstances, but it feels right. It's like this is what I was supposed to do.
Let's talk about, and to be fair, to be balanced. Let's talk about the other part, not the traumatic issues of battle and trauma, but also that coming down afterwards. Because I've had guys that came back here. You'll never get the same high out here, never.
Yeah.
Or you'll never get the same high. And a lot of guys spend their lives. I've known individuals that spent all their time back here looking for something that gives them the same high that they had when they were out there.
Like motorcycles. When I worked security, we were talking to a vet, and he was saying, because I had just gotten mine, and we were talking about bikes and stuff, and he was saying, I was like, I'm not going to get one. He's like, I don't trust myself on one. He was a vet. He's like, I've had too many friends that I was in the military with that killed themselves on those things because they go back and they're like, that's easy, especially the fast Japanese bikes. Get out there and just be stupid on them. It's a rush.
Yeah,
for sure. And so that's another thing is chasing that adrenaline high.
Yeah.
And then even another issue that happens is these vets come back, like we talked about before. They're looking for a job that kind of has something to do with experiences that they had. And a lot of them try to be police officers. A lot of them aren't as level-headed and open-minded as Derek is.
It's not the same. It's not the same, yeah.
Yeah, you go from a war environment to where it's like them kill those guys to being
Pretty defined, yeah.
from being a cop.
Slightly, a few more rules.
Yeah,
A few more.
exactly.
A few more.
Exactly.
I don't know.
And being a police officer,
Plus, there's a TV image of what police do.
Right.
And there's a reality of what police do, which they are vastly different. You know,
Right.
if I watch these shows, which I hate doing that, watching these cop shows, these movies. Cop got his gun out every 3 minutes, pointing at somebody, firing shots in the air. There's a foot chase every 5 seconds. No. No, it ain't that way.
it's basically you get interrupted from paperwork occasionally.
You're sitting in a vehicle at 3 a.m. thinking, okay, how long till we get out of here?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, but that becomes a problem where you have a lot of these guys who have PTSD. They're suffering from these issues. You know, they can't turn that switch off, and now they're even more of an authority figure with a badge and a gun, and they're dealing with the issues that police deal with are very complicated and very
which can lead to more issues because the way that you're taught to deal with them is not what you can do out here. I mean, the restrictions, the constitutional right, that Constitution gets in the way.
Yeah, that's right.
These constitutional rights people have here, it's not TV, it's not a movie. These people have rights, and you have to always respect them. So.
Yeah. But it's interesting. I hope that there continues to be just a more open-minded approach on it. That was one reason I wanted to have you on, because you seem like you took that aspect, that route of it, of a more open-minded approach instead of the old school tweed jacket therapist of just
That's on the couch.
it's like what do you got? Okay, let me look at my list and see what drug. Okay, that one, here you go.
Thank you.
So
Appreciate that.
because I think that's so important. I think that most things I think can be fixed with perspective and perception, and now it's very difficult, of course, as you would know way better than I would, to get people to look at things that way. But it's just because it's just American culture in general. We want the quick, fast, easy, fast food way for everything, and it's over medication is rampant for everything. It seems like.
I think it's impressive that you guys have the awareness about the perception and the need. Something can be good in this moment or bad in this moment, and then when you look at it in hindsight, and it was neither good nor bad, it just felt that way in the moment. But a lot of the therapy that I do is about the perspective shifting, and I love that word, shift. It doesn't imply that there's this huge change. You can sail a ship 2 degrees differently off the coast of New York, and it will land, instead of in England, and I could be totally wrong on this, it will land in Spain.
Yeah. Okay.
Just a simple 2-degree shift.
It's crazy.
So the perception thing is a big deal. And a lot of times we're harder on ourselves than we are on others. And hence that's kind of like why having a special therapeutic relationship is easier, because you have this other person who's able to help you see that
you can't yourself.
That you're holding yourself to a standard you wouldn't hold a loved one to. That it's harder to give yourself kindness and compassion. So, yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes I guess it helps to have someone that will just be honest and tell you what you need to hear. Like you said, family members sometimes, because if someone, you don't want to offend people and stuff,
You're not helping them by not being honest. There's a way to be honest, though.
Right.
You can't come across as, you can't do that. If you have to come across in a caring way.
Right.
And boy, that's really sappy for me. But
it is.
but if you're not doing anybody any justice by not being honest with them.
Right.
Look, if we're friends, we're buddies, we're pals. Look, I'm going to tell you the truth, and the other person has to know that you're willing to be honest and truthful with them.
Right.
So.
Yeah, that's the big thing, is just putting everything out there in the open. Shedding light on it. It seems like the big challenge and the first step. And just the culture issues. But I don't know. I guess we talked to people long enough, and we freaked out Derek enough with all our hippie stuff.
Dude. Where the incense at? Dude. Sorry, am I stereotyping? I'm sorry.
We'll talk about belt-fed machine guns next time.
You guys are like yin and yang. It's awesome.
Come on, I'm sure there's when we get done, he can show you the van out front with the flowers and the paisleys on.
Yeah, right.
The mystery machine.
Yeah. I do have a Neil Young record on there. So.
Neil Young.
Yeah. Even though he hates guns.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
Sacrilege.
Yeah, that's one thing. It's funny. Like I've never been, I've been very accepting of the fact that I don't fit in anywhere because, because it's funny. A lot of like the music I listen to, like I'm interested in people I like people who are very ideological, but I'm realistic about it because I get that people who are very people who are like that, it's good in practice. Or it's good in
theory.
I said it right backwards. It's good in theory, but not necessarily in practice. And some of those people, like Neil Young, for example, some of the stuff he says in his music is unbelievable. But it makes sense to me that he doesn't like guns because, in theory, of course, it makes sense. Like here are these things; they're dangerous. They hurt people. Let's not have these to be part of our society, and our society will be safer. It makes sense, in a vacuum. But you actually, realistic about it, realize the fact that if you look through history, once somebody gets the idea in their head to build something, it's here to stay.
Yeah.
It's here. The atomic bomb, nuclear weapons, they are here. It doesn't matter how many news stories you see about them destroying 10 of them. They're here. So we have to embrace them just like anything else.
The Japanese. In medieval Japan, they were all about the samurai code, swords. They hated guns, and when the Europeans showed up with this fire stick, Japanese hated them. They thought they were unmanly and they were cowardly. But once they realized how effective they were, my God, the Japanese became one of the biggest gun makers out there.
Yeah.
So yes, we have to embrace change.
Yeah. And technology is always considered, like especially warfare, is considered cowardly at first.
Wimp, he's got a gun with a wimp.
Yeah. Or like you hear that talk about drones right now. Like, oh, that's cowardly that they're just flying a unmanned craft over there and doing things. Well, I guarantee you in about 30, 50 years, if we go to war with another developed country, which hopefully doesn't happen, but if it does happen, it's going to be a drone war. It's going to happen.
That's it. We're sitting back here with the controller. All right. Then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which, okay, we'll close on this.
Okay, we ramble. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. It's how it goes.
That's why it's interesting.
Well, you might find this
is her doctorate. Come on. This is her doctorate thesis right here. Come on, man.
Well, okay, so there's actually been drone pilots which is really interesting because they're, that's what I'm about to say, they're out in like some military base underground or something in Arizona, and they're killing people by the dozens, in countries
10,000 miles away.
Yeah.
On a TV screen.
Right, and this has been an issue lately where these guys want combat medals, and also some of them seek treatment for PTSD. And guys like Derek make fun of him. Oh, it's
yeah, honey. Home for dinner. It was rough over there. I had to move that controller 6 times.
I ran out of Doritos.
Baby, it was rough. The vending machine ran out of Cheetos.
See, I get that perspective, but also it's got to be confusing. I mean, you are actually killing people. Like you just push that button and like 12 people just died instantly. And then you just went home,
had dinner with the kids. Hey, how you doing?
Yeah. So
lack of transition there.
There's work and then there's home. Don't bring home to work. Don't take work home.
Right. So that's got to really confuse people. In the same way, like we talked about earlier, how like warfare has changed from where it's like you're very much like on the battlefield, versus where. Like how the Iraq War went, where you might go out and be in a dangerous territory and fighting, and then you come back and it's like playing video games. And
Americans do things very remotely. Are known for that. We do things we're dependent on our technology, and we do things very remotely, which is one reason they think we're cowards.
Oh yeah.
Because if you were a man, you would come down here and fight me. No, I won't. I'll be up here and hit that button, and you're gone. Thank you. So they think we're cowards.
Yeah, resentment of technology is always it'd be that way.
Whatever, dude. Whatever.
Yeah. But anyway,
we're done.
Yeah. But I really do appreciate you coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
But Thanks, no problem. I really appreciate it because I know that like we're the different kind of people that usually hang out with.
Slightly. Slightly.
But that's what I try to do on this kind of show because there's plenty of gun podcasts out there to tell you to keep you updated on all the happenings in the Second Amendment and all the new products coming out. There's plenty of that. So I figure I want to try to share some different perspectives and some interesting stuff. So, got to have interesting people on because,
It's been enlightening for me too.
Oh, well, okay. I'll compliment.
Yeah. And man, some of the stuff you said is really interesting. That stuff is very interesting. And hey, maybe sometime we come on again and do it again.
Thank you.
Yeah. I really appreciate it. All right. Well, we'll talk to you guys later.
Bye.